Blastmon is the last of the 3 head generals of the Bagger Army that we actually get to see. I mean, Tactimon we see right away, Lilithmon comes shortly after, but Blastmon mostly stayed in the background in the shadows. I mean, the only thing we knew about him was that he was the biggest, and had kind of a bit of an itchy trigger finger, and I was genuinely curious to find out who this giant was. Then we actually get to see him, and yeah, this is kind of a disappointment. I think out of the 3 head commanders, he's designed the worst. I like his arms, but I can't get past how stupid his body looks. I was hoping for something a bit cooler, seeing how he's the last general we meet. What's even extra disappointing is the fact that even though we wait the longest to see him, he's probably the least special. I mean, he's not nearly as smart as Tactimon or Lilithmon. And even though his main strategy is just to brute force his way through obstacles, I wouldn't even call him the strongest out of the 3. I think Tactimon and his sword edge out Blastmon when it comes to strength. Well, what kind of soldier is he? How productive is he? Well, out of the 3, he's collected the least amount of code crowns. In fact, he seems to spend most of his days just sitting around eating. Yep, I'm sure glad they kept this unstoppable force from us for so long. In case you can't tell, Blastmon is pretty much comic relief. Not meant to be taken seriously, and certainly not meant to be a real big threat. In fact, for the first half of the season, his main thing is just to eat more gems to make himself look prettier. Yeah, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Tactimon and Lilithmon. All these generals have their own things. Tactimon is a perfectionist, and Lilithmon, when she gets upset, explodes. And for Blastmon, his thing is that he's a diva. You know what I think would have actually helped this situation a lot? If Blastmon was the first one that we saw, and Tactimon was the last one that we saw, and you switch their order. I mean, Tactimon is the most productive out of the 3, he's collected the most code crowns, he's the strongest. He would be a much better reveal as the final general than Blastmon. It'd be much more gratifying to have the mysterious figure be the strongest Bagger Army general as opposed to the weakest and most incompetent. Especially when you find out that not only was he the last one revealed to us, he's also the first one taken out of commission. Not killed, just taken out of commission. But enough talking about placements and reveal times, because it is pretty much like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Now let's talk about Blastmon's character, or what he's supposed to be, because he's supposed to be comic relief. So the question is he funny? And in my honest opinion, yes. I do in fact find Blastmon funny. Not only that, when he's on screen with someone, he occasionally makes them funny. I kind of don't know why I like Blastmon. Well, I know why I like him in the second half, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I don't know why I like him in the first half so much. I mean, Tactimon's still my favorite out of the 3, but I like Blastmon more than I think I should. I think it may be because I secretly feel bad for him because he's getting so easily manipulated by Digimon. And guess what? I hate Digimon. But I like most of the scenes that he's in, and I kind of wish, like I said, he was introduced sooner, because then we would have had a lot more scenes with him, and I probably would have gone softer on this season. Started us off with a soft comic relief character as opposed to, well, Tactimon. Anyway, Blastmon is just a joy to watch. Now let's talk about his last fight he has during the first half of the season. After being manipulated by Digimon, who's preying on his, I guess you could say, inferiority complex, Blastmon decides to go challenge Crossheart by himself in a one-on-one match. The fight that they have is actually pretty good, because the battle is, well, a battle. It's not a one-sided curb stomp battle. And it ends with Blastmon's body getting destroyed and his code crowns being captured by Taiki. Now just being a useless head, Blastmon doesn't do anything for the rest of the first half of the season. Although I think he's taking the fact he lost his body pretty well, especially since his defining character trait, other than stupidity, was his love for himself and how beautiful he thought he was. I was expecting him to be catatonic, but you know, as long as he gets candy, he's fine. At the start of the Death Generals half of the season, we learned that Lilithmon and Blastmon have pretty much been pushed aside, making way instead for the Death Generals. Lilithmon does not take this very well. But here we learn that Blastmon is in love with Lilithmon? Lilithmon doesn't take this news very well either. But quick question, am I the only one that thought that came out of nowhere? I don't really remember Blastmon showing any special affections towards Lilithmon. I mean, we see him here, and the next time we see him, he has a completely different relationship with Lilithmon. Okay, fine. I don't mind. Makes him a big, goofy, hopeless romantic. I love those guys. I just wish that it was kind of foreshadowed a little more. Then again, it's not too far out of the realm of possibility that in the months or years that Taiki's been gone, he formed a bit of a crush. But this whole relationship with a big old doofy guy trying to win over the affections of the bitchy girl kind of reminds me of something.
Why can't you be as powerful as him, Mummy-mon?
Huh? But I've got charm in class. Come on, don't tell me you're falling for that prefabricated hunk of shrapnel.
I don't have time to bother with all that nonsense.
I'm glad that's such a big relief.
With that being said, are you ready for my big controversial statement for this episode? I think that out of all the characters in this season of Digimon Cross Wars, Blastmon is handled the best. And I don't mean he's the best character in the show. Let me kind of explain a little bit. Nene, great character during the first half of the season. Completely falls apart during the second half of the season. Darulamon, cool Digimon character. Underutilized and horribly executed backstory. Kiria, my favorite human character in the season. But he waffles quite a bit during the first and the second half of the season, in my opinion. Tactimon, strong, smart, proactive, pretty good villain. Disappointing as all hell death, which almost ruined the character for me, I'm not gonna lie. Lilithmon, probably one of, I think, the best female villains that Digimon has ever had, unnecessarily demoted and demeaned during the second half of the season, having her character be completely rewritten to fan service. Blastmon, besides being kind of a bit of a lame reveal, hasn't really sunk beneath any of his own kind of standards that he put upon himself, and never really disappointed me at all. He was always pretty funny, and I liked him whenever he was on screen. Now I know what you're thinking, didn't Blastmon get demoted along with Lilithmon during the second half of the season? And doesn't that impact Blastmon's character equally as negatively as it did Lilithmon's? And my response is, no. My problem with Lilithmon getting demoted is the fact that I never understood why the writers felt they needed to demote Lilithmon. I mean, she was just as strong and smart as she was before. She was still incredibly loyal to Bagramon, so I never understood why the show just tossed her aside so carelessly. The demotion just seemed like an excuse to get her from this to this. Actually, I felt that Blastmon didn't actually get demoted during the second season. I felt that he got demoted when he lost his body during the first season. And you want to know something? He lost his body in a very satisfying and decent fight. And even as a disembodied head, he was still pretty funny and he was still enjoyable to watch. So as opposed to Lilithmon, I thought the show handled his demotion very well. And unlike Tactimon and two other characters we're going to talk about later, his death scene was not disappointing. In fact, I think the death scene of Lilithmon and Blastmon is probably my favorite scene in the entire season. The scene starts with Lilithmon lying in an acid lake, and three Vilemon using the last of their energy to drag her out of the lake before she completely dissolves. As they die, Lilithmon wonders why they would come back to save her, especially after she's abused them so much. The show then cuts to Blastmon, who solemnly states what they've pretty much already known. Their era is over. Lilithmon refuses to accept this, saying that she can't die knowing Beelzemon is still around. In a final attempt to destroy the heroes, Lilithmon and Blastmon cross together. These are the final words they say to each other.
覚悟はいいね、ブラスト。覚悟ならいつでもあったさ。愛しいリリちゃんのためのな。
Aww.
くだらない。
Bitch!
でも結局私にはタクティモンとあんたしか信じられる仲間はいなかったの。生かすぜ、リリちゃん。丹元氏の最後の力を見ろ。
That was pretty wizard.
Best death ever! Or best final scene, whatever, I don't care, it was great! I especially loved the line where Lilithmon confesses that she thought Tactimon and Blastmon were the only two she could trust. Because I always wanted to see more scenes with these three together, interacting with each other. And I always thought these three were supposed to have deeper relationships than were actually shown in the anime. It's obvious Tactimon has a soft spot for Blastmon, seeing how he uncharacteristically offers to lend him soldiers, and when Blastmon loses his body, after berating him, Tactimon promises to avenge him. And Blastmon seems to genuinely lovingly refer to Tactimon as Tacti-chan. God, I can just feel there was so much more meant to be done with these characters. And, God, why did Tactimon have to die so early on? Why couldn't he have just lived long enough to make it to the Hellfield? Then all three former Bagger Army generals could have been there together in their last final scene, and could have been crossed into one mighty, epic beast, and given the proper endings that they deserved. Well, that's all I have to say about the three Bagger Army generals. And after all the abuse the show put them through, they are still three of my favorite characters in the whole season. So let's end this off with a tiny tribute to the three head officers.
You guys are my best friends, through thick and thin. We've always been together, we're four of a kind, having fun all day, palling around and laughing away. Just best friends are we. I love you guys.
Switching gears, we're going to start talking about a fan favorite villain for this season, which is DarkKnightmon. I say fan favorite because it seems like everywhere I go, fans of the show seem to think that DarkKnightmon is the best villain in the season, and should have been the main villain instead of Baggermon. And after watching the season, I couldn't agree with them more. DarkKnightmon, I think, is the best villain this season could have hoped for. He's powerful, engaged in the story, and commands more of a presence than Baggermon could ever hope to command. I was much more interested in trying to figure out what DarkKnightmon was doing than trying to figure out what Baggermon was going to do with his stupid floating crystal thing. I have several other reasons why I think DarkKnightmon is a good villain. Number one. Oh wait, no, it's okay, I got the unlimited time. No, I got the code, I called Google, see it says right there, can upload more than 15 minutes? Look, it's just, Alright guys, I'll talk to you later. I gotta get this sorted out. Next time, we get deeper into DarkKnightmon. And I know some of you are excited. Good night.